Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the world's most exciting classroom event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. This is going to be one jam-packed session, so we have to get right into it. We're going to push it right to the full hour today to squeeze in everything we want to do. We have a lot of new classrooms joining us from the area around Australia and New Zealand. This is our third episode geared to classrooms in that part of the world. So we're so excited to have the new classrooms joining us live and the new classrooms who will be joining us, catching the recording at a later time. So really great to have you with us. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Let's find out where we are right now. So this map is probably looking a little familiar to the classes who have been with us the last 2 weeks. This is on DARWIN200.com. This is our really cool world map that we have here. I have it backed all the way up to where we were in August 2023, before the Oosterschelde left Plymouth in the United Kingdom and began its voyage following Charles Darwin's voyage of the Beagle around the world. So if we follow the map, you can see where we crossed the Atlantic Ocean. We made our way all the way around the coast of South America before we headed out to the Galapagos, which anyone who knows Darwin knows that the Galapagos had a huge role in his thinking about the world and biology and contributed greatly to his theory of natural selection. And then we had this massive chunk of time where we crossed this huge blue marble of ocean across the Pacific, and we made our way to the North Island of New Zealand. So if I zoom in, the last few weeks were kind of boring if you looked at the map. We were up here in Wangari. We did not move. We were undergoing maintenance. We crossed an entire ocean. We didn't have many supplies. We couldn't pick a lot of things up or do repairs. So the ship badly needed some time, some maintenance to get ready for the next voyage. We did a little sail a couple days ago to Auckland. And here in Auckland, we are picking up the next crew, as well as the passengers who will be on board. And the Oosterschelde will raise anchor tomorrow and make its way across the Tasman Sea. Take about 2 weeks to get to Sydney, Australia. Once we're there, we're going to have a massive series of events for about 2 weeks. We're going to do a ton of live stuff from the field, so we can't wait to have your classrooms joining in for that before we head to Hobart and spend some time in Tasmania and then back to the South Island this time of New Zealand. So that's the next few months. So much live content coming your way. It's going to be a good time here at the world's most exciting classroom. So I'm going to come back from that screen share, and we're going to get right into it with our first guest for today. So let's take that out. The last 2 weeks, we have been taking a little virtual trip to Indonesia, where we have two researchers, Rannva and Maria, who were with us as Darwin researchers on the Oosterschelde. Rannva was with us in Fernando de Noronha, an island off the coast of Brazil. And then Maria was with us when we were in the area around Tahiti, so Mangareva and Papiti. They did incredible coral transects for us. They were amazing scientists and divers, researchers, and members of the Explorers Club. So this is our third week catching up with them on their expedition Butang in Indonesia, where they're exploring an incredible cave system. There's drive cave parts. There are parts in the water where they're diving. I think last time we connected, they pushed over 4 kilometers into this cave system. So let's bring Maria in and get started with a catch up. Hey, Maria, how you doing?
Very good. Hi, good to see you again. Everything is fine on this end. We're actually nearing our last sprint of the expedition. So we have about 4 days left. We keep pushing cave, mainly outside the big system that we came to explore, because there's so many caves around this huge water filled system. So we're looking into different parts in the area now as well. So we were here on the first week of the expedition. We live casted with you guys, and we explained to you what we were going to do. We spoke about the science that was interesting. So these cave systems are amazing because they are sitting in ancient coral reefs. So as you dive through the underground, you see fossils of corals and shells. It's amazing. But the science part, we're actually done with today. Today we're doing this last samples in the furthest part in the cave, which is gonna be 4.5 kilometers underground that we need to scooter through. and then we need to do sampling in there. But actually today, like last time we spoke about the diving objectives, today we brought in Kirana, who is part of our Indonesian dry cave team. So we have 6 dry cavers, some of the finest of Indonesia, who are traveling underground on a daily basis, discovering the area's dry caves. And I think maybe the divers we have on this team are badass, but we are just floating underground through the cave. Kirana here, she's crawling through earth.
Very cool. Well, Kirana, it's so great to have you with us. On the last week, we're connecting with the expedition. You sent me some great pictures, some great video, which we're going to share. But I think you should start off and maybe introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, thank you, Joe. So, greeting from Indonesia. It's 9 o'clock in the morning here. Let me introduce myself. My name is Kirana. I'm 25 years old, and I'm one of the dry cave team in Expedition Buteng.
All right, very cool. I've got some pictures ready. I've got some video ready. So, Kirana, I'm going to let you take the lead. You tell me what you need, when you need it, and let's take off and get into some dry caving.
Okay, as you can see now, I'm ready in my caving suit with the helmet and the headlamp on. I'm ready to take you exploring the dry cave with me. But before going any further, what is a dry cave? So imagine there is underground hiding and secret place that is dark and full of amazing rock formation, but with the water. That is what dry cave is. And here I'm being one of the team of the dry cave. We do exploring the dry passage of the cave. And if you see last week, you talk with Maria and Rannva. They look so amazing with their dry suit and their diving gears with air tanks. Yeah, in the dry cave, I don't need all of that gears. But does it mean that dry caving is easier than cave diving? The answer is no, because we have to remember that in dry cave we still have full gravity, which is mean instead of floating through the water, we have to walk and crawling through the rocks and the muds. And sometimes when we find a vertical cave to explore, we need to use special techniques. It's named single rope technique. So basically it's like a technique for going down and going up with only one rope. And it's so amazing feeling to hanging in the one piece of rock with a view from above, just like the Spider-Man. And here I have a video that describe our activity in the dry cave. So Joe, please play my video and please enjoy. Okay, so that's a glimpse of our activity in dry cave, and here we also have some picture that describe how is it going inside the dry cave. So Joe, can you please show us? Yeah, this one. So the cave, the dry cave is sometimes have a tiny little passage that only fit for one person, and as we can see in this picture, we can't even stand up, so we have to crawling down. And for the next picture, please. Yeah, this is how the rock formation looks like inside the cave. And for the next pic, please. Yeah, this is the huge chamber. So we can find a really huge chamber inside the cave, but we also can find a small passage. That's what make dry caving is so interesting. And yeah, one of the main role of the dry cave team in Expedition Buteng is to find a new cave entrance and go explore into it. And we also make a cave map to from inside the cave. Here I have some video. Video of this is one of the example of the cave map that we make in Laulawi Cave. This is the dry part.
I remember when you did this. So I was standing down by the water where we normally start our dive, and Kirana and her team came from the surface, and it looked incredible because they had their headlights on, and it looks like these alien ants that just came crawling down the cave all over, and they had this laser. You were shooting with a laser,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
How does that work?
Yeah. So we did measurement of the cave with laser disto. I have some video of it. So please, Joe. Yeah, this is the tools called laser disto. So we use these tools to measure the size of the
Yes.
cave. That's it. And from our exploration at the dry cave, we also find an interesting archaeological things. We found some old pottery that people in the past used that for taking water from the cave. Maybe Joe, can you help me? Yeah, this one of it. So you guys have to be grateful and respect water because it wasn't that easy to get to water. Like it's not like nowadays that the water just pump to your house. In the past, people have to crawl down the cave with the hand torch, and they use this pottery to take the water.
This is not even that long ago in Indonesia, I
Yeah.
guess. Having a water pump pumping water into your house, that's what
Yeah.
within the last few centuries, I guess, in these remote areas. Not long ago, people had to crawl into the cave with pottery like that.
Yes, and we also find so amazing and interesting rock formation. This is one of the stalagmite we found inside the cave. It looks like pretty much like corals, but actually it's a rock that formed from the settlement of the mineral calcite. They make such an amazing shape with this. And next, this is also one of the stalagmite with a unique shape that we found in the cave. And one of our most important role of the dry caver is to finding the new dry passage that leads to the water. So after we found the dry passage leads to the water, the diving team will dive in it and see what is going there.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. At the end of the day, we all gather up.
Yeah.
Oh, you have a video.
Yeah,
of it.
that is the water, the one of the water passage that we found inside the cave.
Yeah, very cool.
This.
Go ahead, Maria.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, it paused for a second, but I think you're back.
And like actually it's an evening meeting, to be honest. We sit down and the team leads explain how the day has been, and it's always very exciting to hear what the dry cavers has done, because we're exploring this one water-filled passage, but we're always waiting for them to come back and say, we found more cave, which you constantly do. There are caves everywhere, but sometimes they come back and say, yeah, this one has the water. We have 2 hydrologists at the moment out here, who has been spending the last couple of days sampling water and running around with this device where they scan the underground. So 300 meters scanning down through this karst limestone underground, and there they can see how much water there is, or where it's placed at least. So it's super interesting.
Very cool. Well, I think I want to make sure we get some questions in. So for those who are tuning in via the live stream, use the chat sidebar and send in some questions. If your students have any questions about dry caving, or Maria's here, we could have questions about the diving as well. But to get us started, while we wait for a couple questions to come in, Kirana, I imagine we can't see it under your cave suit, but you've got to have some bruises and bumps and scrapes from dragging yourself through those tight passageways.
Of course, I got a lot of bruises, scars, adventure scars. We call it adventure scars. But it's so fun to do it, yeah.
Well, I guess it's the price you pay for exploration, going into places no one's been before. Yeah, pretty cool. So I've got a question here about the creature that we saw in the video. What was that, and what was on its back?
So the name of that creature is a whip-tailed scorpion. So it's not a scorpion, it's not a spider, it's a different species that live in the cave. And what's on the back is her babies. She's carrying her babies on the back. It's
Very
so cool.
Yeah, very cool. Now, we saw one example of some cave life, but have you found anything else? Maybe bats or small mammals, anything else living in the caves?
Yeah, sure. I saw a lot of bats. Once I found a big chamber and it's full of bats and full of rock formation. It's literally looks like Batman house. Yeah, and we also found crickets. We also found cave scorpions inside the guano.
The guano?
Very
Yeah,
cool.
What is guano?
guano is a bat poo.
Oh, bat poo.
Yeah.
Does it smell in the dry caves?
Yeah, it smells musty.
Musty.
Smell.
Yeah, so it's not just mud that you're getting on your cave suit. Probably a little bit of bat guano too as you're squeezing around.
Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, another question about the gear you use. What would you say is the most important piece of gear that you bring into a cave with you?
Of course, the shoot is called coverall because the shoot is protect our skin from the rock, the sharp rock, or from the animal like scorpion maybe, and of course the helmet because this is protecting our head inside the cave, and of course the headlamp because without this we cannot see anything. And also for the vertical cave we have SRT gears. It's single rope technique gears. It's contain like 12 different gears.
Yeah.
Kirana told me that one of her favorite things is to go on a rope where she drops down into a cave. Like, what's the highest you have been roping down?
I've been on 70 meters deep.
70 meters. Wow.
With
that's
one
pretty
rope.
wild.
Amazing.
So that's a good lead into the next question in the chat is, don't you get maybe a little scared in those tight spaces?
Okay, I used to feel scared going through the tight passage, but after seeing all the amazing formation, a lot of things to learn inside the cave, I forgot what I fear about.
All right, fair enough. That's kind of, Maria, I bet you've got the same thing with diving. Maybe a little butterflies as you're planning, but once you get into the water, it's just, you forget about all of that and you're just so excited to be there and exploring.
Completely. And actually, we see it a lot with divers as well. A lot of people are saying, oh, sharks. I will never dive with sharks. I'm very scared of them. And the person that is the most scared, once we go in the water, after, of course, we've explained that sharks really are not dangerous for divers. They don't really care, or they're super scared of us. But once they get in the water and they see the shark, something happens. People get so fascinated when they see these beautiful creatures moving underwater. So often it is like that with fears, right? It's mostly in our head. And once we go in there and we face them, then there's a lot of beauty behind.
Absolutely. Well, we've been so lucky to be able to have a Starlink with you so you can connect from the field. It's been so great to follow the expedition over the last 3 weeks. We can't wait to, well, I mean, I don't want to rush it because I know you still have, 4 days out in the field, but we're looking forward to when you get home because we want to see everything. We want to see pictures and video and hear all about the expedition from start to finish.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be online with you guys. We love the whole DARWIN200 project, and it was incredible to be part of it on the Oosterschelde, and to have the opportunity to talk about what we're doing out here as well. So thank you for that, Joe, and thank you to Kirana for joining in from the Dry Cave team as well.
It's my pleasure.
Kirana, it was so great to meet you. Good luck over the next few days.
Thank you.
We'll connect sometime in the next few weeks.
Good plan.
All right.
Take
care.
Stay
safe. Have fun out there.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya. Okay, so there we go. A nice little event in the field. We're jumping around a lot today. So we've got classrooms joining us in Australia and New Zealand. I'm broadcasting from Canada. We just had the 2 team members from Expedition Butang in Indonesia. So we're moving around a lot today. So we had a small change in our schedule for today. We were going to connect with Simon Pierce. He works with the Marine Mega Fauna Foundation studying whale sharks. He does incredible work all over the world. But a few days ago, he was called out into the field. So he is in the field, probably somewhere in Indonesia, if I had to guess, and doing whale shark research. So we're going to have him live on another date. But I do have a little video from Simon. So a few weeks ago, I interviewed Simon for something we do call the Daily Dive, where we explore cool things happening around the world in science and technology and research and expeditions. And we do little videos for classrooms. And what Simon talked to us about in this little 5-minute video is giving an ultrasound to a whale shark. So you heard me right. In the wild, diving underwater with an ultrasound machine and giving a pregnant whale shark, the largest fish in the world, an ultrasound. So let's take a look at this little video from Simon and see what it's like to do this in the ocean with such a large creature. So I'm going to load that up here on my end, and we will check this out together.
Hi, I'm Simon, and I'm a principal scientist at the Marine Mega Fauna Foundation. And our job there is working with some of the largest species in the ocean, so animals like whale sharks and manta rays, and we work on how we can best protect them. So whale sharks are an amazing species. We think they are the largest fish that has ever lived, based on the fossil record so far. So absolutely massive. They get quite a bit longer and heavier than a school bus. So the biggest that's been measured was about 65 feet long. So huge fish. They're totally harmless and placid to people. So they're just planktivores. So they eat little zooplankton and things like little fish if they can get them as well. One of the things we've been really interested in with whale sharks is their reproduction, because we know so little about it. So there's only been one pregnant female whale shark that's ever been examined, and that was way back in 1995. And yeah, we haven't been able to learn anything since. So some colleagues of ours working in the Okinawa Aquarium had managed to get a human ultrasound machine used for monitoring pregnancy and things, and put it in a waterproof case and get it underwater in their aquaria. So they were starting to be able to monitor the pregnancy and other things going on in some of their aquarium animals. And we thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if we could get that out into the field? And the best place to do that seemed to be the Galapagos Islands, because that's one of the only places where we can consistently find big adult female whale sharks. Yeah, it was really interesting getting this into the field for the first time because it was literally the first time they had used this equipment outside the aquarium. And there we were traveling sort of 30 hours in a tiny boat up to the very northernmost island in the Galapagos. Like it's a very, very remote area. So everything kind of has to go right. And the equipment worked well. The issue is always being able to keep up with the sharks because even though they're very relaxed and they're just swimming quite placidly past us, it's still very hard for us to keep up with them underwater. So to be able to spend enough time with them, kind of 30 seconds to a minute, to be able to use the ultrasound wand to be able to actually like scan their whole belly area. Rui, the scientist that was doing the ultrasounding, he had attached a propeller mount to his tank, which I refer to as like the jetpack, so that he was able to have the big briefcase-sized ultrasound in one hand and a kind of a trigger accelerator for the jetpack in his other hand, and that was how he was able to go ahead and actually get ultrasound measurements of these sharks. So yeah, the other thing we were trying to do is just make sure that we weren't the sharks didn't really know we were there. So we were trying to make sure that we weren't disturbing them with too many bubbles and things, and that we were just approaching nice and gently so that it wasn't scaring them in any way. And yeah, it all worked pretty well, actually. Like for some of the sharks that were thankfully a little bit slower moving, we were able to get really good scans. It's crazy because even though whale sharks have a relatively high profile, I mean they're enormous, you know, as the world's largest fish and things, and there's whale shark tourism in some parts of the world. So for a shark, we know quite a lot about them. But then we've only ever found one pregnant female. We don't really know where the adults spend most of their time. So there's definitely still a lot out there to figure out. And there at the Galapagos, we have been able to deploy satellite tags on quite a few of the sharks now. So we've been able to see where they go when they're leaving the Galapagos, and they seem to spend a lot of time out in the open ocean. So I think going forward, like we hope to continue this work, and as I said, at different times of the year and things, but also maybe find some other oceanic islands, like volcanic islands, like the Galapagos, where we might be able to intercept them at different times of the year, and that could be a pretty good place to learn more about them as well. I actually grew up watching conservation documentaries and things and reading books about conservation here in New Zealand, where I'm from. And that really inspired me that scientists were doing a lot to protect endangered species, and that also they seemed really nice, and that looked like a pretty awesome job for me as well. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then when I started studying, I got very interested in sharks and rays because there was so little known about them at the time. And there's still, as I said, we've still got some mysteries out there, but we're definitely learning more and more about them, and we're doing a better and better job at protecting them as well. So that's what keeps me kind of got me into it, but keeps me really inspired as well. And that some of the places we're working now, we're starting to see more and more whale sharks each year, and that's what makes me really happy.
All right, so there we go. It's a little introduction to Simon. He is out in the field now, but sometime in the coming months, we will snag him when he's home in New Zealand, and we'll do a nice live session with him. So moving on in today's event, every week we do an experiment. That experiment is something you can replicate in your classroom or at home, and then you have 2 weeks to try that experiment out, take some pictures, and send them to us at classroom@darwin200.com. Then at the end of 2 weeks, we will select 3 classrooms and send them $50 Amazon gift cards for taking part in our experiments. So we have had 2 experiments so far, because this is our 3rd World's Most Exciting Classroom event. We are going to have a new experiment tonight, but before we do, we have to go back in time and check out our experiment from 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, we were looking at ocean acidification. We had some shells, we put them in water, with vinegar to see what would happen to those shells. Let's take a look at the results video from the Darwin studio, and then we'll see some pictures sent in to us by a classroom in South Australia.
So what did your shells do? Did you also find that the shell that you put in vinegar decreased in weight, whereas the one that you put in water stayed exactly the same? Did you manage to answer the 3 research questions? The first question asked what happened in the experiment. As the shells are made of calcium carbonate, which reacts with acid, by putting it in the vinegar, some of the calcium carbonate reacted and dissolved away. And that explains why the shell that we've taken out of the vinegar weighs less than when we put it in. Some of the shell has reacted with the acid. The second question was, what was the gas we saw bubbling from the shells? Well, the answer to that was carbon dioxide. The reaction between the acid and the calcium carbonate releases carbon dioxide that bubbles back up to the surface. The last question asked what was the impact on the marine life in the world's oceans. Well, unfortunately, as the world's ocean's acidity increases, it can actually kill some marine organisms and damage others. This is because, as we've seen with the shells, the increasing acidity of the world's oceans dissolves the calcium carbonate, making the exoskeletons and bones of marine life more and more fragile. When we tested the pH of the vinegar, we saw that it was very, very acidic. Of course, the oceans are nowhere near as acidic in real life, but nevertheless, as they increase in acidity, this process that we've seen in this experiment acts on all of the different marine animals, including the mollusks and seashells out in the world's oceans. So, as the acidity increases, the more calcium carbonate will dissolve and bubble away, making the marine life more and more vulnerable. A big thank you to everyone who took part and uploaded results. Let's see the winning entries to this experiment.
All right, so let's take a look at one entry that was really great from the experiment a couple weeks ago. I'm going to share my screen again here, and we're going to take a look at this entry. This is from Naracoorte Primary School, so they are in South Australia. And first, they went out to the beach and they were able to collect some shells. So here is where they went to collect some of those shells. And then they went ahead and did the experiment in the classroom. So they weighed the shells before. They took a measurement of the pH of the water and the vinegar solutions. And then they put those into their glass jars and they left them for a little while. One thing they noticed right away is that it immediately started to bubble. The shell that was put into the vinegar solution started to bubble right away. And then here is within a couple of days, this is the jar that had the shell in it with the vinegar, and the shell is completely gone. It was completely dissolved. So this really illustrates what's happening in our oceans. As our oceans become more acidic, the shells of different creatures start to dissolve. And there's not much that they can do about that. So if the oceans continue to become more acidic, it is going to impact more and more species that need to build those shells to protect themselves. So a huge shout out to our group from Naracoorte Primary School in South Australia, and we'll have a $50 gift card to send to your classroom. So I'm going to come back from that screen share, and we're going to take a look at our experiment, our brand new experiment. So this new experiment, you will have 2 weeks to try this experiment in your classroom or at home. Send us some pictures to classroom@darwin200.com. Let's take a look at this brand new experiment.
Have you ever wondered how plants absorb water from the ground through their roots and transport it up to their leaves for photosynthesis? It's a pretty amazing feat when you think about it, because the water is flowing against the direction of gravity. Several processes explain this phenomenon of how plants can absorb water and transport it in their tissues. At ground level, capillary action in the roots is very important for the plant to absorb water from the soil. Many plants use capillary action to absorb water into their roots and to transport it in their xylem, which act a bit like veins that run up the stems of plants to their leaves and branches. But capillary action only works to a certain level. Above a particular height, most plants have to actively transport fluids to their uppermost parts, their branches and their leaves. This week's experiment is going to look at how capillary action works. You need 3 beakers, but you could also use glass jam jars or glass cups. Fill 2 of them with roughly the same level of water. I've put in 400 millilitres of water on the 2 beakers on this side and this side. The one in the middle has to be empty, with no water in at all. Then you need some food colouring. You can really choose any colour that you wish. I've chosen blue and yellow. You then have to pour in some drops of food colouring. It doesn't really matter how much you put in. Let's put in a good amount in there, and hopefully that'll turn the water nice and blue. And on this side, let's also put in some drops here, and hopefully this will turn the water nice and yellow. Let's give it a bit of a mix. And this one here, a bit of a mix too. Next, you need some tissue paper or paper towel. Fold this up into nice little folds so it's a long, thin strip, and put half of it into one of your beakers or cups or jam jars, and the other half in here, and then do likewise on the other side. So you should end up with a setup something a little bit like this. You then have to leave your experiment for 1 hour, 2 hours, and 4 hours. Fill out the results sheet on www.darwin200.com and send in photos of what your experiment does to classroom@darwin200.com. Join me in 2 weeks' time and we'll look at how my capillary action experiment has changed, and we'll see if my results are the same as yours. Good luck and see you next time.
All right, so there we go, an experiment for this week looking at capillary action in plants. The supplies are pretty easy. I think most classrooms have beakers or can get some jars or glasses, some paper towel, and a little bit of food coloring. If you try it out in your classroom or try it out at home, you need to send some pictures to classroom@darwin200.com, and then we will select some classrooms in 2 weeks from now for some of those prizes, those $50 Amazon gift cards. So 2 weeks to give that experiment a try, and send in some pictures so we can see what you got up to. So since Simon wasn't able to visit us, I thought I would find something else for us to talk about for the remainder of our time. And what came to me was our time in the Galapagos. So I was lucky enough to head out to the ship and spend 10 days in the Galapagos when the Oosterschelde visited the Galapagos. And I've got some pictures and videos. This really was one of the highlight stops along the Darwin 200. We had a lot of events going on. We had young Darwin leaders working on conservation projects in the field. And I want to take you on a quick little trip to the Galapagos so you can see just what it was like to explore these absolutely incredible islands. So I'm going to share my screen one more time with you here. That should be loading now. And there we go. Let's make that full screen. We don't need to see me in the corner. So where are the Galapagos? Here is a map of South America. This is the equator. Ecuador is the country they are a part of. And if you go along the equator for about 1,000 kilometers, you find this little group of islands. This group of islands is the Galapagos Islands. So if I move to the next slide, you can see what this archipelago, this group of islands, looks like. Now, the Galapagos is pretty special. It formed due to volcanic activity on the ocean floor. And there was a hot spot on the ocean floor where magma, liquid rock bubbles up and it forms rock, forms new land. And eventually it gets high enough so that these islands break above the surface. Now, these islands move on a conveyor belt. They move from west to east. So these are the older islands in the Galapagos, San Cristobal, Espanola down here. These are the newer islands, Fernandina and Isabella. So the volcanic hotspot is right here underneath Fernandina. So Fernandina and Isabella are two volcanically active islands, and the volcanoes still erupt regularly here in the Galapagos. But once you start moving this way towards South America to the east, these islands are no longer volcanically active. They're full of lots of life and lots of erosion. So when you get to San Cristobal, the islands start to get a lot flatter. So younger, volcanically active, the hotspot here under Fernandina. These are the older islands that formed earlier and moved along this conveyor belt towards South America. This is the Oosterschelde. It is a beautiful Dutch tall ship, over 100 years old. Here's a nice shot of it at sunset in the Galapagos. And this is on Santa Cruz. This is Porto Aero. This is the public dock. You can see this big male sea lion here with me on the dock, greeting people as they come ashore. Life in the Galapagos is amazing. It's, millions of years, no humans. They don't view humans as predators. So they come really close to you. They're not afraid of you. It's really neat to be able to see the animals acting like you're not even there. There are beautiful bird species like this blue-footed booby. You can see they have these beautiful blue legs, their blue feet. The bluer the feet, it's a signal to the females that they're a healthy male. So the more fish they catch and the more fish they eat, the bluer their feet turn, because the pigment from the fish goes into their feet. And that's how females can tell if a male is a really good fisher, a really good hunter, and would be a good choice to have chicks with. There's another picture of a blue-footed booby, nice blue feet there. This is called Kicker Rock. This is a little rock formation. It looks like, a soccer boot. That's why it's called Kicker Rock. And when you dive here, it is full of sharks. I want to share a video here of what it's like to dive with the hammerhead sharks here at Kicker Rock. So check this out. All right. I absolutely love that. It's so much fun to be in the water with sharks. And as you can see, those sharks really weren't too interested in me and what I was up to, but it was so great to spend a little time in the water with them. The giant tortoises. I think everybody knows about giant tortoises in the Galapagos. They can get pretty darn big. Big enough that back when Darwin was visiting, he figured he could probably ride on one, that they were so big. They're not quite as big now because they were hunted for a long time as people visited the islands in the 16, 17, 1800s, but they're still pretty big and pretty beautiful. And on each island, there's a different species of tortoise. So the original tortoises would have drifted over from mainland South America. Maybe a big storm washed some logs and leaves into the water, making these little floating islands. Snakes and lizards and tortoises would have been washed onto these little islands and would have drifted out to the Galapagos. And then on each little island, being separated from each other, they changed in tiny little ways. And they're all slightly different. Some of the tortoises have longer necks for reaching food higher up. Some have really short necks for eating food really close to the ground. So each island has its own species of giant tortoise, which is pretty cool. Here's a nice close-up of one of those tortoises. At night, they get into the water. They like to sleep in the mud. It keeps them warm at night when the temperature drops, and then they come out during the day to look for some food to eat. And so this tortoise here is probably close to 200 years old. And you can tell the smoother the shell, the older they are. The young ones have a lot of ridges and bumps on their shells, but then as they get older, they get those really smooth, kind of their shells. We took a day trip to a beautiful island called Bartolome. And here we sailed the Oosterschelde. We took some beautiful pictures of the ship in front of Pinnacle Rock, which is an iconic place in the Galapagos, probably one of the most photographed places in all of the Galapagos. And I have another little video here of what our little visit was like when we came and spent a little time at Bartolome. All right. So my favorite part of visiting this area was the snorkeling. So let me share my screen here again. And let's take a look at some of these images. So believe it or not, there's penguins in the Galapagos. They're called Galapagos penguins. They are the farthest north you will ever find penguins. So they live right on the equator, but they're in danger. There's only about 2,000 pairs left across the islands in the Galapagos. But they are penguins. They are really fun to see. Sometimes they jump into the water with you, and you can get these great images of the penguins in the water. Here's another shot of the penguin just lounging around. So it's the furthest north that you're going to find penguins in the world. I've got a little video clip that I want to share here of what it's like to be in the water with one of these really fun Galapagos penguins. So you can see we found this one. You can see the ship in the background. There's the Oosterschelde. You can see this penguin's just preening itself, cleaning its feathers on this lava rock, this volcanic rock. You can see here it is. It's come into the water, and now it's having a little bit of a swim, looking for some little fish to eat. You can see I'm swimming next to it. I'm not getting too close, but you can see the penguin is not bothered by me being there at all. And so there we go. That's what it's like to be in the water and swim with a Galapagos penguin. You can see it's looking down, looking for something to eat there in the water. So let's go back to our pictures. What else did we snorkel with? Oh, well, this is on the shore, actually. This is a lava heron. So you can see that color, it blends in with the lava rock, and they're very stealthy hunters. They're small birds, but you can see this one, it's looking at something very intently with this yellow eye. And then, bam, it shoots its head into the water, the shallow water here, and it comes out with this little fish. So again, this is most of the things we've looked at, the penguins, the tortoises, this lava heron. These are endemic species. That means they're found nowhere else in the world except in the Galapagos. So if a species is endemic, it's found in one place in the world. And so a lot of these are examples of endemic species in the Galapagos. There are these Galapagos sea lions, and these are the most fun to snorkel and swim with. They will sneak up on you and blow bubbles in your face. They love to do somersaults with you. One time, one of them pulled off my fin, my swim fin that I was using. So they're very playful, the young sea lions, and a lot of fun to be with in the water. Here's a couple of them swimming in front of a green sea turtle. But I have a little video clip as well here of what it's like to be in the water with these Galapagos sea lions. They are the smallest sea lions in the world. So Galapagos sea lions are the smallest sea lion species in the world. You can hear they make a lot of noise even when they're in the water. You can hear them making tiny little barking noises. And this is probably a mother with her pup. You can see the mother's kind of a little bit lazy, swimming in the water. But the pup wants to play. The pup wants to play all the time. There it is, zipping around, doing somersaults, trying to get mom to play, coming over to me saying, hey, you want to play? So you can kind of dive down and swim around with them. It's a lot of fun to swim with sea lions in the Galapagos. And then we're going to get a close look at Mom's whiskers here. Those whiskers are very important for sensing and feeling around, especially when they dive down deeper. There's not as much light in the water. And so there's a picture here of this green sea turtle, and I want to show you a little video of the green sea turtles. So in the Galapagos, there's 7 species of sea turtle in the world, but in the Galapagos, you just generally find one, the green sea turtle. And I have a little video here swimming with those green sea turtles. So there we go. They get their color not because they're green, they're usually more of a brown color, but they eat seagrass, they eat algae, and it turns their fat inside their bodies green. So that's how they get that name, green sea turtle. And in the Galapagos, the waters are cold and nutrient rich. So the islands kind of stick up from the sea floor. Cold, nutrient-rich, deep water hits the islands and gets pushed to the top. We call that upwelling. It brings all the nutrients to the surface, and that's why there is so much ocean life, fish, and sea turtles, and sea lions, and penguins, and sharks, and on and on and on, because that cold, deep, nutrient-rich water gets pushed up to the surface when it hits the islands of the Galapagos. So the Galapagos is pretty amazing. We had an amazing 10 days there. We met great scientists and researchers. We explored and sailed around some of the islands. And best of all, we spent time in the fields with the incredible wildlife of the Galapagos. So that's a little taste of the Galapagos I wanted to share with you today. I hope you can see it's an amazing place. And I really hope someday everybody tuning in gets a chance to visit this place. It's called the Galapagos. It's also sometimes called the Enchanted Isles. And I hope you can see why. It is a beautiful place full of unique wildlife. And what a treat to get to visit the Galapagos. Okay, so that's what I want to share with you about the Galapagos. We are going to do a quick Kahoot quiz together. So for those of you who haven't joined us before and don't know what a Kahoot quiz is, I'm going to tell you all about it right now. So while I was presenting, I made a little Kahoot quiz behind the scenes, a few questions about the Galapagos. If you were paying attention, you will be ready to answer these questions. So if you are going to join and try with us, you need to go to kahoot.it, kahoot.it, and then it's going to ask you for a PIN number. There's your PIN number, 203-2496. Or her. If you have a laptop or a tablet at your desk, you could join that way. If you're joining from home, there's a QR code there. You could scan that and that will bring you into the Kahoot quiz as well. There are 4 questions today, some true and false and multiple choice. And then if we get some players join us today, we will have a prize to give out to the player with the highest score today. So as you join, you'll be given a name automatically. Don't worry if you can't join today. Just practice, shout out your answers, and see how you do with the Kahoot quiz. I've got a question in the chat. How cold was the water there? It wasn't that bad. I would say, depending on where you were, it's between 60 or 70 degrees Fahrenheit in the water. So I just wore a swimsuit and just a long sleeve kind of rash guard or yeah. And so that was more than enough to be in the water. So it really wasn't that cold, but it was a lot of fun to be in the water, and it was hard to leave the water because it was like a show all the time. All the wildlife there with us. Okay, so we'll give it maybe 30 more seconds to see if we have a couple more students or classrooms join us. What I will mention as well is we're going to wrap up after this with our Curiosity of the Week. So our Curiosity of the Week is something for you to solve. It's a unique object or item or mineral or plant or animal. And then you have 1 week to figure out what it is and send your best guess in. And then, of course, we have a prize for a student who sends in the correct guess. So I think we've got a couple groups in. Let's go ahead and let's play some Kahoot because we have to wrap up with our Curiosity of the Week. So here we go. So first question coming your way It is a multiple choice. The volcanic hotspot is found under which island? Was it Santa Cruz, Espanola, Fernandina, or Bartolome? So which island was the volcanic hotspot found under? Was it Santa Cruz, Espanola, Fernandina, or Bartolome? Got a few more seconds to lock in your answer. The quicker you put in the right answer, the more points you get. And if you're not sure, you can always just take a guess and see how you do. But yes, Fernandina is where the hotspot is. It's the youngest island in the Galapagos. So that's got the purple seal in first place. We have a true or false question. The Galapagos sea lions are the largest species of sea lion. Is that true or is that false? The Galapagos sea lions are the largest species of sea lion. So true or false? Galapagos sea lions, largest species of sea lion. All right, so that is false. They are the smallest species of sea lion. Okay, we have another multiple choice. An endemic species is found. Is it found in one place in the world? Is it found all over the world? Is it found only in the ocean? Or is it found only on land? So endemic might be a new term. Are they found in one place in the world, all over the world, only in the ocean, or only on land? All right, so one place in the world is where we find our endemic species. If it was a pandemic species, it could be found all over the world. Okay, true or false? Galapagos penguins are further north than any other penguins. So Galapagos penguins are further north than any other penguins. You got a few more seconds to get your answer in, and then we will wrap up our quiz for today. So that is absolutely true. The equator is as far as you're going to find penguins, and it is those super cool Galapagos penguins. In third place, we've got, in second place, the aquatic swan, and in first place, today we've got the purple seal. So if you are in the classroom with the purple seal, I need you to send me a message to classroom@darwin200.com. I'll put that banner up for a second. Classroom@darwin200.com. Send me a message and we will get a gift card coming your way. Okay, we're at the last thing we need to do today, and that is our curiosity of the week. Last week we had a unique curiosity. Students had a week to send in their answer. Let's see what the answer to last week's curiosity was.
Last week's curiosity was this object here. Your task was to write in and guess what you think this creature might be. Well, some of you thought it might be a type of fish or a ray. Actually, it's a horseshoe crab. The name's a bit deceiving because it's not really a crab at all. It's much more closely related to arachnids. That's the group of animals that include spiders, scorpions, and mites. It's an incredibly ancient animal. You can find fossils that look almost exactly the same as this, that date back over 250 million years. So it's a very, very old organism indeed. And yeah, it is quite an interesting creature. If you turn it over, you can see all of the limbs that feed the mouth in the middle. So well done for those that guessed correctly. And we really hope that you'll try your luck for this week's Curiosity of the Week coming up next.
All right, so as Stu said, we have another curiosity coming your way. Let's take a look at our brand new curiosity for this week.
This week's curiosity is this object here. Can you guess what this is? I'll give you a clue. It isn't a toy or a rattle for a child, but the noise is very important. It is used to make that sound to attract a certain animal. Can you guess what it is?
All right, so there we go. That is our curiosity of the week. You have 1 week to send your answer to classroom@darwin200.com. So I'll pop that back up there. So 2 weeks to work on the experiment. Send us some pictures from your class or at home. And then 1 week for the curiosity of the week. Send your best guess to classroom@darwin200.com. So there we go. Our third episode of the World's Most Exciting Classroom is coming to an end. Thank you for those who joined us live and those who will be tuning in later. The last thing we need to do is a shout out to our sponsors, our supporters, our partners, without whom we wouldn't be sailing around the world. We wouldn't have these live classroom events, researchers on board, or our young Darwin leaders who we're training to be future conservationists. Next week, the ship will be sailing from New Zealand to Sydney, Australia. We will have a live connection from the ship, and we'll talk to some of the filmmakers on board. We'll talk to our researcher, George Kourounis, on board. So don't miss out on our event next week. We've got another guest speaker. We have all kinds of stuff coming your way next week. New experiment, new curiosity. Hope to see you then. Until then, have a great rest of the week, and we'll wrap up with that thank you to our sponsors.